The town of Millbrook was not like other towns. It sat quietly in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. But what made Millbrook different was how divided it was. On one side of the railroad tracks lived the wealthier families, the ones who drove expensive cars, wore designer clothes, and sent their kids to private lessons after school. These people lived on the north side of town, where the streets were clean, the lawns were green, and everything seemed perfect. On the other side of the tracks was the south side, where life was harder. Here the houses were smaller, some even falling apart. Many families struggled just to put food on the table or keep the electricity running. This was where Lila Johnson lived. She was 16 years old, with dark skin that glowed under sunlight, and eyes full of dreams she couldn't always share with others. Lila wasn't like most teenagers her age. While they spent their time worrying about parties, clothes, or social media, Lila had bigger things on her mind. Lila's dream was simple. She wanted to sing. Not just any kind of singing, though. She wanted to be heard. Music was her escape from a world that often felt unfair. Every day after school, she would walk to an old abandoned church at the edge of her neighborhood. No one else went there anymore. It was too broken down, too forgotten. But Lila loved it. The church had high ceilings, cracked stained glass windows, and a musty smell that reminded her of history books. Most importantly, it had silence. Silence that let her voice fill the space without judgment. Her grandmother, Mrs. Evelyn Johnson, worked long hours at a diner on the north side of town. Even though Evelyn didn't have much, she always encouraged Lila to follow her dreams. "You've got something special, child," she'd say while stirring a pot of soup on the stove. "Don't let nobody tell you otherwise." Those words stuck with Lila, even when times were tough. They gave her strength when she needed it most, but not everyone believed in Lila's dreams. At Millbrook High School, where Lila studied, the students were divided much like the town itself. There were the popular kids, the ones who ruled the ER hallways, decided what was cool, and laughed at anyone who didn't fit in. Leading this group was Jake Miller, a tall boy with sandy blonde hair and a smirk that never left his face. His girlfriend, Claire Bennett, was equally cruel, known for rolling her eyes at anyone she thought was beneath her. Jake and Claire loved making fun of Lila. To them, she was easy prey. She was poor, quiet, and spent most of her time alone. They called her Church Mouse because someone once overheard her talking about singing in the abandoned church. Whenever they saw her in the halls, they'd mimic her voice in exaggerated tones or ask her to sing for them sarcastically. "Come on, Lila," Jake would say, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Let's hear that angelic voice of yours." Then he'd laugh and his friends would join in, leaving Lila feeling small and invisible. Despite their cruelty, Lila tried not to let it bother her. She knew better than to waste energy on people who didn't understand her. Still, some days were harder than others, like the time Claire cornered her in the locker room after gym class. "You really think you're going to be famous someday?" Claire sneered, flipping her long brown hair over her shoulder. "People like you don't make it out of Millbrook, sweetheart." Those words stung, but Lila refused to cry in front of her. Instead, she walked away, clutching her backpack tightly and reminding herself why she kept going. Her grandmother needed her, her dreams needed her, and deep down, she believed that someday, somehow, things would change. One afternoon, as Lila sat on the steps of the abandoned church staring out at the empty field behind it, she noticed a flyer taped to the door. It was an announcement for the annual Millbrook High Talent Show. First prize? $500. That amount of money could do so much for her family. Fix the leaky roof, buy groceries for months, maybe even help her grandmother take a break from work for once. At first, Lila hesitated. What if Jake and Claire found out? They'd probably make fun of her even more. But then she thought about her grandmother's tired face after another long shift at the diner. She thought about the way music made her feel alive, like nothing else mattered. If she didn't try, she'd regret it forever. So the next day during lunch, Lila walked up to the sign-up sheet posted outside the auditorium. Her hands shook slightly as she wrote her name in neat cursive. As soon as she stepped back, she felt eyes on her. Turning around, she saw Jake and Claire watching her, smirks already forming on their faces. Well, well, look who decided to step into the spotlight, Jake said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. What are you gonna do, Lila? Sing us a lullaby? Claire giggled beside him, but Lila held her ground. Maybe I will, she replied softly, surprising even herself with her confidence. Jake raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. Oh yeah? Why don't you give us a little preview right now? The hallway fell silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing to watch. Lila felt her heart racing. She hadn't planned for this moment, but she realized she had two choices: back down or stand up. Slowly, she straightened her posture and took a deep breath. Then, without saying another word, she began to sing. Her voice filled the hallway, soft at first but growing stronger with each note. It was rich and soulful, carrying a depth that no one expected. For a brief moment, even Jake and Claire looked stunned, but just as quickly they recovered, laughing nervously and brushing off the performance as a fluke. Still, something had shifted. As Lila walked away, she could hear whispers behind her. People were talking about her, not in the usual mocking way, but with curiosity and admiration. For the first time, Lila felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this talent show could be her chance to prove herself. Not just to Jake and Claire, but to everyone who doubted her. And so, with determination burning in her chest, Lila began preparing for the biggest moment of her life. Little did she know, her journey was only beginning. The next few days were unlike anything Lila had ever experienced. News of her signing up for the talent show spread quickly through Millbrook High. At first, people didn't take it seriously. They thought it was just another joke, something to laugh about during lunch or in the hallways. But soon, curiosity started to grow. Students who had never paid attention to Lila before began wondering what she could possibly do on stage. Some whispered that she might actually be good. Others dismissed the idea entirely. Jake Miller and Claire Bennett, however, weren't curious, they were irritated. They couldn't stand the idea of Lila getting any kind of attention, especially positive attention. To them, she was still just church mouse, someone unworthy of being noticed. So they decided to put an end to all the talk once and for, all. It happened during lunch one afternoon. Lila was sitting alone at her usual spot near the back of the cafeteria, picking at her sandwich. She tried to ignore the stares and whispers coming from nearby tables. It wasn't easy, but she reminded herself why she had signed up for the talent show, to help her family and prove to herself that she could do something amazing. Suddenly, Jake appeared in front of her, flanked by Claire and a few of their friends. Their arrival caused a ripple of excitement in the room as everyone turned to watch. Lila looked up, meeting Jake's smirk with a steady gaze. She knew what was coming, but she refused to let him see her fear. "So, Church Mouse," Jake began, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "we heard you're planning to sing at the talent show. Is that true?" Lila nodded slowly, keeping her expression neutral. "Yes," she said simply. Claire let out a fake laugh, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "Oh, this should be fun," she sneered. "I can't wait to see what kind of disaster you come up with." Some of their friends chuckled, but Lila didn't react. Instead, she took a deep breath and waited. She knew better than to argue with them, it would only make things worse. But Jake wasn't done yet. "You know what?" he said, leaning closer to her table. "Why don't you give us a little preview right now? Show everyone what you've got." The cafeteria erupted into murmurs. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Would Lila back down? Or would she actually try to sing? For a moment, Lila hesitated. Her heart was pounding and her palms felt sweaty. Singing in front of a small audience was one thing, but performing, impromptu in the middle of the cafeteria, that was completely different. Still, she remembered her grandmother's words. "You've got something special, child." If she didn't believe in herself, no one else would. Slowly, Lila stood up. She straightened her shoulders and looked directly at Jake and Claire. "Fine," she said softly, her voice steady despite the nerves bubbling inside her. I'll sing. Jake grinned, clearly thinking this was going to be hilarious. Claire crossed her arms, looking bored but eager to see Lila embarrass herself. Around them, the cafeteria grew quiet. Even the teachers supervising the lunch period paused to watch. Lila closed her eyes for a second, blocking out the sea of faces, staring at her. Then she opened her mouth and began to sing. Her voice was soft at first, almost hesitant, but it quickly gained strength. The notes flowed effortlessly, filling the room with a warmth that caught everyone off guard. It was a simple melody, something soulful and heartfelt, but there was power behind it, a depth that made it impossible to ignore. People stopped talking. Forks froze midway to mouths. Even the clatter of trays being stacked faded into silence. Lila sang. Her confidence grew. She forgot about Jake and Claire, forgot about the hundreds of eyes watching her. All that mattered was the music, the way it carried her emotions and poured them into the air. When she finally finished, the entire cafeteria seemed frozen in time. For a split second, no one moved. Then, someone started clapping. Another person joined in, and then another, until the whole room erupted into applause. Even some of the teachers were smiling, nodding approvingly at Lila's performance, but not Jake and Claire. They stood there stunned and visibly uncomfortable. For the first time, they realized they might have underestimated her. Jake's smirk faltered, and Claire shifted awkwardly, avoiding eye contact with anyone. "Well," Jake muttered, trying to regain his composure. "That was, okay, I guess." "Yeah," Claire added quickly, forcing a laugh. "Totally forgettable." Their words fell flat. No one paid attention to them anymore. Instead, students crowded around Lila, asking questions and complimenting her voice. Some even admitted they couldn't wait to see her perform at the talent show. Later that day, as Lila walked home, she replayed the scene in her mind. Part of her felt proud. She had faced Jake and Claire head-on and proven them wrong. But another part of her worried. What if they tried to sabotage her chances at the talent show? What if they found a way to ruin everything? When she arrived home, her grandmother was waiting for her in the kitchen. Evelyn Johnson had been cooking dinner, but when she saw the look on Lila's face, she set down her spoon and gave her granddaughter a hug. "What's wrong, baby?" she asked gently. Lila sighed, sinking into a chair at the table. "I sang today," she admitted. "In the cafeteria. Jake and Claire made me do it." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "And how did it go?" "They clapped," Lila said quietly. "But I think Jake and Claire are mad. They're probably going to try to stop me from doing well at the talent show." Her grandmother smiled, patting her hand. "Let them try, sweetheart. You've got something they'll never understand, heart, and that's more powerful than anything they can throw at you." Those words stayed with Lila as she prepared for bed that night. She knew her grandmother was right. No matter what Jake and Claire did, she couldn't let them win. She had worked too hard, dreamed too much, to give up now. Over the next few days, rumors continued to swirl about Lila's impromptu performance. Some students started treating her differently, offering friendly smiles or compliments in the halls. Others remained skeptical, convinced that her singing was just a fluke. But Lila didn't care about their opinions anymore. All that mattered was giving her best at the talent show. Meanwhile, Jake and Claire hatched a plan to ensure Lila wouldn't succeed. They approached the school principal under the pretense of wanting to support the football team, suggesting that the talent show be rescheduled to the same night as the big game. Knowing the majority of students would choose football over the show, they hoped to minimize Lila's audience and diminish her chances of winning. To further sabotage her, Claire spread lies about Lila online, claiming she only got attention because people felt sorry for her. These posts gained traction among certain groups, creating doubt about Lila's abilities. Despite their efforts, Lila remained focused. She practiced every chance she got, pouring her heart into each song. With the help of her grandmother, Mia Thompson, a kind classmate, and Mr. Carter, the music teacher, she refined her performance and chose the perfect piece to showcase her talent. By the time the talent show arrived, Lila was ready. She knew Jake and Claire would try to bring her down, but she also knew she had allies who believed in her. And, most importantly, she believed in herself. Little did she know her performance would leave an impact far greater than anyone expected, not just on her peers, but on the entire town of Millbrook. The days leading up to the talent show were some of the busiest of Lila's life. Every spare moment was spent practicing, rehearsing, and perfecting her performance. She knew she couldn't afford to make mistakes, not when Jake and Claire were doing everything they could to undermine her. At home, her grandmother became her biggest supporter. Evelyn Johnson might not have had much money, but she had wisdom and experience. When she was younger, she used to sing in church choirs, before arthritis made it too painful to continue. Now she poured all her knowledge into helping Lila succeed. "Breathe from your diaphragm, child," Evelyn would say as they sat together in their tiny living room. "Feel the music in your chest, not just your throat." Lila nodded, taking deep breaths as instructed. The two of them practiced late into the night, sometimes until Evelyn's voice grew hoarse from singing along. But no matter how tired they got, neither of them complained. They both understood what this meant, not just for Lila, but for their family. Outside of home, things weren't so easy. Jake and Claire's sabotage attempts were starting to take effect. News spread quickly that the talent show had been moved to the same night as the big football game. Most students immediately dismissed the event, saying there was no way they'd miss the game for something as unimportant as a school talent show. Even some teachers seemed less enthusiastic about attending, knowing the turnout would likely be low. Claire didn't stop there. She created fake social media accounts to post hurtful comments about Lila, calling her desperate and accusing her of using pity to gain attention. These posts gained traction among certain groups, causing whispers to circulate around school. Some students who had initially supported Lila began to doubt her intentions, but Lila refused to let any of it get to her. Instead, she threw herself even harder into preparation. If fewer people came to the show, then those who did attend would leave remembering her performance forever. That was her goal now, to create something unforgettable. Her determination caught the attention of Mia Thompson, a quiet girl in her grade who often kept to herself. Mia had always admired Lila's courage, especially after seeing her stand up to Jake and Claire in the cafeteria. One afternoon, Mia approached Lila during study hall. "Hey, I heard you're working on a song for the talent show," Mia said shyly. "Do you need help with anything?" Lila looked surprised but grateful. "Actually, yes," she replied. "I've been trying to figure out some choreography, but I'm not very good at it." Mia smiled. "I used to take dance classes. Maybe I can help you come up with something simple but powerful." From that day forward, Mia became one of Lila's closest allies. Together, they worked on adding subtle movements to enhance Lila's performance without overshadowing her voice. Mia also helped design a simple yet elegant outfit for the show, a long black dress borrowed from her older sister paired with a silver necklace that belonged to Lila's grandmother. Another unexpected ally came in the form of Mr. Carter, the school's music teacher. Though he wasn't officially involved in organizing the talent show, he had heard about Lila's situation and decided to step in. After hearing her practice during lunch one day, he pulled her aside. "You've got real talent, Lila," he said earnestly. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If you want, I can give you some tips to make your performance even stronger." Lila accepted his offer eagerly. Over the next few days, Mr. Carter lent her sheet music, taught her breathing techniques, and offered advice on stage presence. He encouraged her to choose a song that truly resonated with her emotions, one that would connect with the audience on a deeper level. After much deliberation, Lila settled on "Rise Up" by Andra Day. It was a song about resilience, hope, and finding strength in difficult times, themes that mirrored her own journey. With each practice session, she felt more connected to the lyrics, as if the song had been written specifically for her. Despite all the support, Lila still faced challenges. Jake and Claire continued to mock her whenever they saw her, though their insults lacked their usual bite. Deep down, they must have known they couldn't break her spirit anymore. Still, their words stung. especially when they brought up her family's struggles or questioned whether she deserved to win. One particularly rough day, Lila found herself sitting alone on the steps of the abandoned church, tears streaming down her face. She had just overheard Claire telling a group of girls that Lila only signed up for the talent show because she needed money, not because she actually believed in herself. Before she could spiral into self-doubt, Mia appeared beside her. "Hey," she said softly, sitting down next to Lila. "You okay?" Lila shook her head, wiping her eyes. "I don't know why I bother sometimes. No matter what I do, they'll always find a way to bring me down." Mia placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "That's exactly why you should keep going. You're proving them wrong every single time you open your mouth to sing. Don't let them steal your joy, Lila. This is your moment." Those words stayed with Lila long after Mia left. For the rest of the week, she focused solely on her music, letting it heal the wounds caused by Jake and Claire's cruelty. Each note reminded her why she started singing in the first place. Not for fame or recognition, but because it made her feel alive. Finally, the day of the talent show arrived. As Lila stood backstage, adjusting her dress and taking deep breaths, she felt a mix of excitement and nerves. The auditorium wasn't full, only a handful of students and teachers had shown up, but that didn't matter. What mattered was giving her best performance and honoring the journey that had brought her here. Her grandmother sat proudly in the audience, clutching a tissue in one hand and a program in the other. Beside her, Mia gave Lila a thumbs up, mouthing, "You've got this." As the host announced her name, Lila stepped onto the stage. The spotlight hit her, blinding her momentarily, but she quickly found her footing. Looking out at the audience, she spotted her grandmother's encouraging smile and took a deep breath. Then she began to sing. Her voice filled the auditorium, rich and soulful, carrying every ounce of emotion she had poured into her preparation. The room fell silent, captivated by the raw power of her performance. Even Jake and Claire, sitting reluctantly in the back row, couldn't tear their eyes away. By the time Lila finished her final note, the entire audience was on its feet, cheering and clapping wildly. Tears streamed down her face as she bowed, overwhelmed by the response. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, not as the poor girl from the South Side, but as someone capable of greatness. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of her journey. Her performance would spark changes not just in her own life, but in the lives of everyone who witnessed it. The night of the talent show felt surreal to Lila. As she stepped onto the stage, the bright spotlight made everything else fade away. The empty seats, the whispers, even Jake and Claire sitting stiffly in the back row. All that mattered was the moment, the music, and the chance to share her voice with the world. Her heart raced as she adjusted the microphone stand to her height. She took a deep breath, letting the familiar rhythm of her heartbeat steady her nerves. Then, she opened her mouth and began to sing. From the very first note, the room changed. Her voice was powerful yet tender, filling the auditorium with an emotion so raw it seemed to reach into every corner of the space. The song she had chosen, Rise Up, spoke of resilience and hope, themes that resonated deeply with her own life. Each word carried the weight of her struggles, her dreams, and her determination to rise above the challenges thrown her way. As Lila sang, the audience was spellbound. Even those who hadn't planned to stay for long found themselves unable to look away. Some students leaned forward in their seats, their faces reflecting awe and admiration. Teachers nodded approvingly, whispering to each other about how remarkable her performance was. Jake and Claire, who had come reluctantly just to mock her further, sat frozen in their chairs. Their smirks disappeared quickly, replaced by expressions of disbelief. For the first time, they realized that Lila wasn't just some girl they could push around. She was extraordinary. When Lila reached the chorus, her voice soared higher, carrying a strength that brought tears to many eyes. Her grandmother, sitting near the front, dabbed at her cheeks with a tissue, pride shining in her gaze. Mia, seated beside Evelyn, held her hands over her mouth, amazed by how perfectly Lila had captured the essence of the song. By the time Lila finished the final note, the entire auditorium erupted into applause. People stood up, cheering loudly, and clapping until their hands hurt. It wasn't just polite applause, it was thunderous, heartfelt, and full of admiration. Lila stood there, stunned, as the sound washed over her. Tears streamed down her face as she bowed slightly, overwhelmed by the response. Backstage, Mr. Carter waited anxiously, pacing back and forth. When Lila emerged from the stage, still glowing from the performance, he rushed over to congratulate her. "That was incredible, Lila," he exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "You've got something special, something unforgettable." Lila smiled shyly, still trying to process what had just happened. She knew she had given her best, but she hadn't expected such an overwhelming reaction. The support from the audience felt like a warm embrace, wrapping around her and reminding her that she wasn't alone anymore. After the show ended, several judges approached Lila to offer their praise. One of them, Ryan Hughes, a local radio DJ known for discovering new talent, was particularly impressed. "I've been doing this for years and I can tell when someone has real potential," he said earnestly. "Your voice is unique, Lila. It's clear you put your soul into what you do." He handed her a business card, scribbling his personal number on the back. "If you're interested, I'd love to record a demo with you. Let's see where this can take you." Lila accepted the card with trembling hands, hardly believing what was happening. Just days ago, she had been mocked and ridiculed by her classmates. Now, she was being offered an opportunity that could change her life forever. Later, that evening, as Lila walked home with her grandmother, the streets of Millbrook seemed quieter than usual. The town itself appeared unchanged, but Lila knew something inside her had shifted. She no longer felt invisible or insignificant. Instead, she felt empowered, as if she had finally claimed her place in the world. Evelyn wrapped an arm around her granddaughter's shoulders, squeezing gently. "I'm so proud of you, baby," she said softly. "You showed them all what you're made of." Lila nodded, smiling through her exhaustion. "Thank you, Grandma. I couldn't have done it without you." Word of Lila's performance spread quickly throughout Millbrook. Videos of her singing went viral online, shared by students who had attended the talent show. Comments poured in from strangers across the country, praising her voice and encouraging her to pursue her dreams. Some even compared her to famous singers, saying she had the potential to become a star. But fame came with its own set of challenges. At school, Lila noticed a shift in how people treated her. While many students were genuinely supportive, offering congratulations and kind words, others remained distant or jealous. Jake and Claire in particular struggled to accept her success. They tried to brush it off as luck or a temporary trend, but their attempts to dismiss her only made them look petty. One day during lunch, Jake approached Lila again, though this time his tone was different. "Look, he stammered, avoiding eye contact. "I just wanted to say, you were pretty good out there." Claire stood behind him, arms crossed and glaring at the floor. She didn't say anything, but her presence spoke volumes. Both of them looked uncomfortable, as if apologizing was the last thing they wanted to do. Lila studied them for a moment before responding. "Thanks," she said simply, her voice calm but firm. "Maybe next time, instead of mocking someone, you should try supporting them." Jake nodded awkwardly, then turned and walked away, dragging Claire with him. Though they seemed sincere, Lila wasn't sure if their apology was genuine or just a way to save face. Either way, she decided not to dwell on it. What mattered most was staying true to herself and continuing to chase her dreams. With Ryan Hughes' help, Lila recorded a demo of her singing. The process was nerve-wracking but exhilarating. For the first time, she heard her voice played back professionally, polished and refined. Ryan assured her that he would send the demo to music producers and labels, confident that someone would recognize her talent. As weeks passed, Lila balanced her newfound opportunities with her responsibilities at home. Her grandmother reminded her often to stay grounded, warning her about the pitfalls of sudden success. "Remember who you are, child," Evelyn would say. "Don't let anyone change you." Lila took those words to heart. Despite the attention and praise, she remained humble and focused. She continued practicing her singing, determined to improve and grow as an artist. She also made an effort to reconnect with old friends and classmates, showing them that fame hadn't changed her. Meanwhile, Jake and Claire faced consequences for their actions. Their plan to sabotage Lila's chances at the talent show came to light when Mia exposed their scheme to the school principal. Evidence of Claire's fake social media accounts and Jake's manipulation of the event schedule was uncovered, leading to disciplinary action. Both were suspended from extracurricular activities and forced to attend counseling sessions on empathy and respect. Though their reputations suffered, Jake and Claire eventually began to reflect on their behavior. Seeing Lila succeed despite their efforts made them realize how wrong they had been. Slowly, they started making amends, not just with Lila, but with others they had mistreated in the past. For Lila, the journey was far from over. She knew that challenges lay ahead, both personally and professionally, but she also knew she had the strength to face them. With her grandmother's unwavering support, Mia's friendship, and her own unshakable determination, she was ready to take on whatever came next. As she stood outside the abandoned church one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Lila felt a sense of peace. This place, once a refuge from the world, now symbolized her growth and resilience. No matter where life took her, she vowed never to forget the lessons she had learned here, or the power of her own voice. In the weeks following the talent show, Lila's life changed in ways she never imagined. Videos of her performance went viral online, spreading far beyond Millbrook. People from all over the country watched her sing, leaving comments filled with praise and encouragement. Some called her voice heavenly, while others said she reminded them of famous singers they admired. Local news outlets picked up the story, calling her a hometown hero and praising her determination and talent. First, Lila found it hard to adjust to the sudden attention. Everywhere she went, people recognized her, students at school, neighbors in her community, even strangers at the grocery store. They approached her with smiles, asking for autographs or selfies. While most were kind and supportive, the constant spotlight made her feel uneasy. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, and it took time for her to get comfortable with it. Her grandmother helped her navigate this new reality. "Remember who you are, baby," Evelyn would say whenever Lila seemed overwhelmed. "This fame won't last forever unless you work hard and stay humble. Don't let it go to your head." Lila listened carefully to her grandmother's advice. She knew that success could be fleeting, and she didn't want to lose sight of what truly mattered: her family, her dreams, and staying true to herself. Despite the growing number of fans and followers, she continued practicing every day, determined to improve her skills and prove that her talent was more than just a one-time wonder. Mia remained one of her closest allies during this time. Now that Lila had gained popularity, some students tried to befriend her out of curiosity or jealousy. But Mia stayed loyal, always reminding Lila of how far she'd come and encouraging her not to let anyone take advantage of her kindness. Together, they spent hours brainstorming ideas for future performances and discussing how Lila could use her platform to inspire others. Ryan Hughes also played a key role in shaping Lila's journey. After sending her demo to several music producers, he received positive feedback almost immediately. One producer, based in Chicago, reached out expressing interest in working with her. He invited Lila to visit his studio for an audition, promising to help her record her first single if everything went well. The idea of traveling to Chicago excited Lila, but it also scared her. Leaving Millbrook meant stepping into a world she didn't fully understand, a world where competition was fierce and failure felt like a real possibility. Still, she couldn't pass up the opportunity. With her grandmother's blessing and Mia's encouragement, she agreed to go. Before leaving, Lila faced one final challenge: confronting Jake and Claire. Though their suspension had ended, they returned to school quieter and less confident than before. Rumors about their sabotage attempts had spread, and many students now avoided them. When Lila saw them sitting together during lunch one day, she decided to approach them, not out of anger, but out of a desire to move forward. "Hey," she said softly, standing near their table. Both looked up, startled. For a moment, no one spoke. Finally, Claire cleared her throat. "Look, Lila, we're sorry," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "We were wrong to treat you the way we did." Jake nodded reluctantly. "Yeah, you didn't deserve any of it." Lila studied their faces, searching for sincerity. Though part of her doubted their apology, she chose to accept it. Holding on to bitterness wouldn't help her grow. "Thanks for saying that," she replied. "I hope we can start fresh." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Jake and Claire to reflect on their actions. Over time, they began making efforts to change, though rebuilding trust would take much longer. When the day came for Lila to leave for Chicago, her grandmother and Mia accompanied her to the bus station. Evelyn hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "You've got this, sweetheart," she whispered. "Make us proud." Mia handed her a small notebook filled with song ideas and lyrics they had written together. "For inspiration," she said with a smile. "And so you don't forget about us while you're gone." As the bus pulled away, Lila waved until the station disappeared from view. Her heart raced with excitement and nerves, but she felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. In Chicago, Lila met the producer, Mr. Allen, who welcomed her warmly. Over the next few days, they worked tirelessly in the studio, recording tracks, refining melodies, and perfecting every detail of her debut single. The song they chose was one Lila had written herself, a heartfelt ballad about overcoming adversity and finding strength in oneself. Though the process was exhausting, it was also exhilarating. For the first time, Lila saw what it meant to create art professionally. She learned about mixing, mastering, and the importance of storytelling through music. By the end of the session, she felt proud of what they had accomplished. When the single was released, it quickly gained traction online. Fans praised its emotional depth and authenticity, connecting with Lila's story and her powerful vocals. Radio stations started playing it, and soon it climbed the charts, earning her national recognition. Back in Millbrook, the town buzzed with pride. Neighbors gathered to celebrate Lila's success, hanging banners and organizing events in her honor. Even Jake and Claire attended one of these gatherings, quietly cheering her on from the sidelines. Despite her growing fame, Lila stayed grounded. She returned home frequently to visit her grandmother, ensuring that her roots remained strong. She also used her platform to speak out against bullying and encourage young people to pursue their dreams, no matter how impossible they might seem. Through it all, Lila remembered the lessons she had learned along the way, the importance of resilience, the value of support, and the power of believing in oneself. Fame hadn't changed her. Instead, it had given her a chance to share her light with the world. As she stood on stage at her first big concert months later, looking out at a sea of cheering fans, Lila smiled. This was only the beginning of her journey, and she couldn't wait to see where it would take her next. Months had passed since Lila's life changed forever. From being mocked and underestimated in Millbrook to becoming a rising star known across the country, she had come a long way. Her debut single topped the charts, earning her praise from critics and fans alike. Music producers lined up to work with her, and invitations poured in for interviews, performances, and awards shows. Yet despite her success, Lila never forgot where she came from, or the challenges that shaped her journey. One afternoon, as she sat in her hotel room after finishing a photo shoot, Lila received an email from Millbrook High School. It was an invitation to return for a special assembly held in her honor. At first, she hesitated. Going back meant facing old memories, both good and bad, and stepping into a place that once made her feel small and invisible. But something about the invitation felt right. Maybe it was time to close that chapter of her life. Not with bitterness, but with gratitude and hope. When the day arrived, Lila returned to Millbrook wearing a simple yet elegant dress. Her grandmother accompanied her, holding her hand tightly as they walked through the familiar hallways of the school. Students whispered excitedly as they passed by, some calling out greetings or asking for autographs. Teachers smiled warmly, congratulating her on her achievements. Even Principal Harris greeted her with a hug, saying how proud he was of everything she had accomplished. The auditorium buzzed with energy when Lila stepped onto the stage. A large banner hung behind her, reading Millbrook High Honors Lila Johnson. As she looked out at the audience, she saw faces she hadn't seen in months. Mia cheering loudly from the front row, Mr. Carter nodding approvingly, and even Jake and Claire sitting quietly in the back. Their presence surprised her, but she chose to focus on the bigger picture. This wasn't just about her. It was about showing others what was possible when you believed in yourself. Principal Harris introduced her, recounting her rise from a shy girl singing in an abandoned church to a national sensation inspiring millions. When he finished speaking, the crowd erupted into applause. Lila took a deep breath, adjusted the microphone, and began to speak. "Thank you all for having me today," she started, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'll admit, coming back here feels surreal. This school wasn't always kind to me. There were times I felt invisible, like my dreams didn't matter. But looking out at all of you now, I realize something important. Those difficult moments taught me resilience. They showed me who I am and what I'm capable of." She paused, letting her words sink in. Some students nodded while others leaned forward, hanging on every word. "I'm not standing here today because I'm perfect," she continued. "I'm standing here because I refused to give up, even when people doubted me, even when things got hard. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. Don't let anyone tell you that your dreams are too big or too impossible. You have the power to rise above anything life throws at you." Her speech struck a chord with everyone in the room. Students wiped away tears, and teachers exchanged knowing glances. Even Jake and Claire seemed affected, their expressions softer than before. For the first time, they truly understood the impact of their actions and the strength it took for Lila to forgive them. Afterward, Lila performed a short set, singing songs that reflected her journey. Her voice echoed through the auditorium, leaving the audience spellbound. When she finished, the entire room rose to its feet, giving her a standing ovation. It was a moment of unity, a reminder that no matter how divided people may seem, music and perseverance could bring them together. As the assembly ended, students crowded around Lila, thanking her for sharing her story and inspiring them to chase their own dreams. Mia hugged her tightly, whispering, "You did it, Lila, you really did it." Even Jake and Claire approached her, though awkwardly. "We just wanted to say, we're sorry again," Claire said, her voice trembling slightly. "And we're proud of you." Lila smiled, meeting their eyes with kindness. "Thank you. That means a lot." Though forgiveness didn't erase the past, it allowed healing to begin. For Lila, for Jake and Claire, and for the entire community. In the weeks that followed, Lila continued balancing her career with staying grounded. She released more music, each song carrying messages of hope, resilience, and self-belief. Fans connected deeply with her lyrics, seeing themselves in her stories. She also partnered with organizations fighting against bullying, using her platform to advocate for kindness and inclusivity. Back in Millbrook, changes began to take root. Inspired by Lila's success, students started treating each other with more respect. The divide between the north and south sides of town slowly diminished as people worked together to build a stronger, more united community. Jake and Claire became involved in volunteer projects, determined to make amends for their past behavior. For Lila, life wasn't without challenges. Fame brought pressure, and there were days when she doubted herself. But whenever she felt overwhelmed, she returned to the abandoned church, the place where it all began. Sitting in the quiet sanctuary, she reminded herself of her journey and the lessons she had learned along the way. One evening, as she watched the sunset paint the sky in vibrant colors, Lila realized something profound. Success wasn't just about accolades or recognition. It was about making a difference, whether through her music, her advocacy, or simply being kind to others. She had the power to create change. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she stood up, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Her journey was far from over, and she couldn't wait to see where it would lead next. But one thing was certain. No matter how far she traveled, she would always carry Millbrook and the girl who dared to dream in her heart.